All right, guys, welcome to the property repair module. This is Ben Barber. I'm going to take you through this today. And really what we're going to focus on as we go through the property repairs is we're going to focus on three different types specific to REO, okay? Those three different types, first one's environmental, second would be a partial repair, and the third one is going to be a full repair. The main thing we're looking at with partial repairs is basically a partial repair are portions of the repairs needed, okay? Now this can be very subjective depending on which client you're working with and which outsourcer, but let's say I'm looking at this property and here's everything that we've determined the home needs. We say it needs carpet, interior paint, a stove, a fridge, a sink, new flooring in the kitchen, updated lights, let's say updated lights through every bedroom, updated basin trim, and then the interior doors are shot and we need to replace those. Okay, now this is just an opinion, and let's say that I as the agent have listed all of these repairs in my BPO, and now the asset manager is sitting down and they're looking at the photos from your BPO and they're looking at the photos from the second valuation, and then they're looking at this list of repairs and they're saying, all right, I'm going to make repairs to the property, but what repairs am I going to make? Okay, now they're going to take a look at the photos and basically make their own determination, because this picture here on the left, I can look at the carpet, I can look at the paint and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. It's going to qualify for FHA, it's going to qualify for VA. But if the agent has done a good job of explaining that the carpet maybe looks good but feels horrible, or it's got a horrible pet odor to it, or that I'm competing against other homes in the area that are brand new builds, then I'm going to look at the carpet a little different, okay? But so for argument's sake, I've looked through this, I've done my market strategy as an asset manager, and I've said, okay, I do want to make some repairs, but I don't think we need everything that you want there. So all I want to do is I want to replace the carpet, I want to repaint the interior, and then I want to replace the vinyl flooring in the kitchen, okay? Now this is partial repairs simply because the asset manager is making a decision to repair certain items that were suggested or were documented in the BPO or in the final valuation. Okay, so the asset manager may have come and said, yeah, you know what, the stove does look like it could be replaced, same with the fridge and the sink, but I don't think we're going to get the money out of them. I don't want to make those repairs. Okay, so now we're in a partial repair strategy. Now, if we're going full repair is not a remodel. Full repair is really just saying, hey, I've looked at everything on the BPO or the final valuation, and I've decided that if I want the home to be in good condition, I need to make all the repairs, okay? Now you'll notice in this example, I left out the fridge and I left out the sink and I still considered it a full repair. Well, the reason I did that is because I'm saying that I may disagree that those things need to be replaced, but I want to do everything else that I feel needs to be replaced. Does that make sense? So just because you as an agent are saying something needs to be done, the asset manager may not agree with you, but it still may be a full repair strategy. So these are kind of semantics, and I think that what really matters at the end of the day is that you understand what repairs are being completed, okay? So these are, when you look at full repair, partial repair, that's just terms that are being used by the outsourcer and by the asset manager internally. And they may attach some different dollar amount saying, hey, look, if we spend over $1,000, it's now a full repair or something like that, okay? But the main thing to keep in mind is that the asset manager is just going to make a decision about what repairs they want to make. And this is a very important piece of repairs in REO. Understand that repairs to REO properties are typically going to be cosmetic, okay? So you've got to stop thinking remodeling and just think update, okay? Like, guys, this isn't us, right? All these fix or flop or flip and whatever they're doing with all these houses, going in, tearing them down, making a fortune, that's not REO, okay? We're not moving walls. We're not doing anything like that, right? We are just making cosmetic repairs. We're replacing carpet. We're painting the interior. We're replacing damaged vinyl flooring, right? But we're not moving walls. We're not doing major construction, and we're definitely not doing renovations, okay? Okay. Now, we have environmental repairs, right? This guy's scraping some potential lead-based paint. And this is a good point, and this is something I want you guys to get used to, is the verbiage. You notice I didn't say it was lead-based paint because I'm not the expert and I don't know if it's lead-based paint or not. And you need to be very cognizant about the way that you're communicating with the asset manager, because we don't want you putting in writing, the asset manager doesn't want you putting in writing, this property has lead-based paint, because unless you're a certified expert, you don't know that. It's okay to come back and say there is chipping paint, there's peeling paint, there's evidence of chipping paint or something similar to that, but you state the facts, right? And in this scenario, the facts is that some guy in a hazmat suit is taking, looks like he is removing what looks like to be some chipping paint, right? Okay. Environmental, and I say that in jest, but I mean it is serious. Like on this one here, we're looking at a picture of what clearly looks like mold, right? But in the REO world, that is discoloration, right? Mold is something where I've actually had somebody come out and certify that there are pores in the air, that it is actually mold. Until that, it's just discoloration. So environmental repairs are going to be mold or discoloration. Any chipping, peeling paint, any evidence or residual of drug use, death, decay, and that can be decay of a human or decay of an animal, right? We see that a lot. We see a lot of abandoned pets in REO properties, but pet waste too. We see it get really bad with pets kind of using the house as their own personal toilet, and then any kind of sewer, septic issues. And guys, and this isn't a finite list, right? Like there can be plenty of other things that are environmental. I just wanted to give this to you as a guide. Your outsourcer is going to define what their environmental repairs are and what their environmental repair process is. Okay, so I just want you to be aware that these exist, and as a whole, the general REO population considers these items to be environmental repairs. Okay. Now, environmental repairs may be addressed prior to valuation, and they may be addressed during the valuation process, right? Now, one of the reasons why we would do them beforehand is if there is a concern about the property itself, like the integrity of the property or not being able to get people in. Like when I look at this and I see that this is a horrible mess, I would have somebody go in as an asset manager if I was looking at this. Before I went to valuations or before I went to market strategy, I would have someone go in and tear this carpet out and treat the wood below it with bleach and bleach wash the walls if they could. So I may define that as a repair, and I may walk it through the repair process and ask the agent to get bids the same way I would if I was replacing the carpet and painting the walls. But I would wait until I was in the market strategy phase to make a determination if I wanted to replace that carpet and paint the walls. But I know hands down up front, I want to get the carpet out of there because I can just imagine it is just the most god-awful smell. I want to get it out of there. I want to get the area treated with bleach, try to kill that as much as possible, try to kill that odor as much as possible, kill that any bacteria or any kind of, it's just nasty to be around. But then I also want to bleach wash the walls so that the area is not as contaminated too. Okay, so just keep in mind that you may be doing some repairs before the valuations are complete, and if you are, they're typically going to be environmental repairs or they're going to be safety repairs. Now, I have already said this, but you need to be aware of the verbiage that you are using when you address environmental issues. And we talked about mold and discoloration. So here's an example for you, okay? This is a process for remediating mold. And you notice on this, I'm saying it like mold, it's remediation as opposed to, I'm drawing a blank, but like just cleaning the mold, right? So just take a look at what's going to happen in this mold remediation cycle. We're going to send somebody out in a hazmat suit and they're going to evaluate it. That means they're going to test the air quality and they're going to see how many pores are in the air. They're going to test the ducts. They're going to do the whole nine, right? Next thing they're going to do is they're going to take everything back to the lab for identification, determine the levels of mold in the air, the action plan that is needed, and then they're going to go out and they're going to complete their mold remediation and then retest the air once they're all done, right? If I say it's mold and I have to go to a mold remediation, then this is what I have to go through. I have to go through this big process. If, on the other hand, I say it's discoloration, this is the process for removing it. I put on some rubber gloves, I get some water with bleach, and I wipe the walls down. Okay? Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be able to do that in every scenario, but until you actually know what it is, we definitely want to err on the side of caution and not call it something that we don't know what it is. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So, one last example for this. If we were to walk this route, we're looking $5,000 to do this mold remediation, have the air tested, have the samples tested in a lab, the whole nine, right? We're looking $5,000, $8,000. I've seen them get up to $12,000 to do remediation. And of course, some properties are so bad that you just sell them as is or bulldoze them. But for the most part, if you're going to remediate, you're looking at a minimum of $5,000 because of all the EPA guidelines that they have to adhere to. But if I were to go treat my discoloration, I'm looking at $30 and some bleach just for the gloves and for the sponge, right? So, I mean, it's definitely said in jest, but the point remains, unless you absolutely know what it is, and the only way you can absolutely know what it is to have an actual report outlining what it is, tread lightly, approach it with caution, and use softening words like discoloration, right? We have some evidence of peeling paint, possibly chipping paint. Just like you wouldn't come right out to somebody and say, I think you're a fraud, right? I think you're a liar. These words are very powerful. Same thing in REO. We want to soften those and say, well, I think you might be inaccurate, or I think you might have your facts backwards, as opposed to calling somebody a liar, okay? So we're just going to soften it up. All right, now the asset manager has reviewed the condition of the property through your photos. They've looked at your suggested repairs and then made a determination on their own of what repairs they think are warranted. So we're going to walk in and repair the property. We basically have two different options of what we're going to do. We're either going to go repair and then list, or we're going to repair and list at the same time. Okay? So here's an example. If I'm going to repair then list, I'm just going to make my repairs before the property goes active in the MLS, right? I'm going to pull the carpet out. I'm not going to worry about showings or anything like that. I'll still have my agent put their yard sign up and still advertise the property as a coming soon, but I'm not going to ask for the MLS information. I'm not going to ask for the agent to put the home on the MLS because I'm going to have all the repairs completed first, verify the repairs, and then list the property. And the reason I would do that is because I want to have a higher return on my investment when people have seen the house with the new carpet and paint or whatever it is that we're going to put into it. Okay? Now, the second one is repair and list. So basically, the asset manager is going to approve a market strategy that's a repair and list, and they're going to say, hey, look, here's our price. Here's some repairs we're going to make. Go ahead and start marketing the property. We'll take care of the repairs. We won't change the price, right? And I put this picture of this dishwasher because this is really the perfect example. If I, as an asset manager, am looking at this property and I say, okay, the rest of the home looks great, but I'm missing a dishwasher, I'm missing a stove and a fridge, and I know that I'm going after a first-time home buyer. I know they're going to do financing and they're not going to have money for these appliances. So I think we're going to make our money back if we replace the appliances, but I also think we're going to sell faster, right? So I say, okay, so I think that the best strategy is that we're going to repair. Well, if I'm waiting for Lowe's or Home Depot or whoever to come deliver a dishwasher for me, I'm not going to hold my property off the market when I could just advertise it and make sure that the agent notes we're going to have a new dishwasher installed. Okay, so if you run into the scenario, I had an agent one time back in Vermont that didn't want to list a home because we didn't have the appliances, and I didn't want to wait. I was the asset manager. And so he and I made a bet. He said, I don't think we'll get any offers. It was a high-end home. And I said, I guarantee we will. All I want you to do is take a picture or a brochure of the appliances that are going to be installed, and I want you to put them on the counter and prop them up so that when people come to the open house, they see that this is the type of appliances that we're going to have installed. And it worked, and we went under contract in 7 days on a home that was in the $400,000 range. So that's a repair and list strategy. You're not going to do that for floors or paint or anything where having potential buyers and agents walk through could really damage the property or interfere with the repairs that are being made. Okay? So we want to look now at how are we going to determine what repairs are needed, right? Here's how I want you to think about it. The repairs needed are repairs necessary to bring the property to quote-unquote good condition. Right now, I understand 100%. Good is very subjective. And my definition of good may be different than your definition of good. The way that the asset managers are trained and the repair specialists are trained is one of two ways. They're going to say good condition is to make it financeable to the lowest down payment financing possible. So go with me on this one. Good condition in that case would be a VA buyer that's buying the home with no money down, or someone who's going through, like in my state, Utah, someone who's using Utah Housing, which is a 100% financing program where we do a first FHA, an FHA first for 96.5%, and then we have a small second that's from the Utah Housing program so the buyers can get into a house with no money down. And then the third option would be FHA, where we're putting 3.5% down. So what determines repairs is when we look at a property and we say, what repairs are needed to bring this property to quote-unquote good condition. Okay, now good condition is going to be very subjective, and it's going to be defined differently by different outsourcers and different clients. And even in your own office, you may have disagreements about what good condition is, and that's why I've got it in the quotes there, right? So let me tell you how an asset manager and an REO shop is trained to look at making repairs and putting them in good condition. We basically are going to break it down into one of two categories. We're going to say good condition is something that will help the property qualify for financing, or we're going to say good condition is something that will help the property meet the neighborhood standards, okay? So when I say qualify for financing, what I mean by that is I'm going to look at the programs available with the least amount of down payment from the owner, okay? So if I'm looking at this, the VA is a zero down program. It's 100% financing. FHA is the lowest we can do if someone was going to buy a house without a down payment assistance program, and they're looking at 3.5% down. Otherwise, they may be doing a local down payment assistance program that does an FHA first and then covers the second, a small second, through the down payment assistance program. In that case, we're still looking at FHA being one of the lowest, or we say lowest, but I guess you could also look at it as the most strict for financing, right? So if I walk into a property and I see that the carpet is shit and it's missing everywhere, and I go up to the bedrooms and it's tacked and there's no carpet on the floor, right? That's not going to qualify for FHA financing. So my repair strategy, if my target buyer is a first-time home buyer or anybody doing FHA financing, I'm going to make those repairs, all right? Now, the neighborhood standards are a little different. So if I have a property, and let's say it's in a great neighborhood, upscale neighborhood, the property itself is fine, right? Like the carpet is fine, it's okay. The paint's okay. The wallpaper is okay, maybe peeling a little bit. But the standard in the neighborhood is that it's an upscale community. Well, I know buyers looking through that area expect a home that is in moving condition, that has new carpet and new paint and modern paint or no wallpaper or whatever it is. So I may make repairs to bring that property to good condition to meet the neighborhood standards, even though it technically would qualify for financing at the lower level. Okay? Okay, so let me give you a couple examples, and it may be a little challenging to see, but bear with me on this. The very top example there is my neighborhood standard. Okay, so the very top one is my neighborhood standard. The very bottom one is my property, my existing property. Okay, so if I look at the first one, I say, okay, it looks like I have nice new paint. The carpet looks good. I have good lighting. Nice painted mantle. I mean, everything about the house looks good. And then I go down and I look at my house and I say, okay, I've got updated floor, updated lighting. My carpet looks good. My paint looks good. No repairs are needed because both of these homes are in good condition. Okay? Does that make sense? So I'm not going to make any repairs to this one because I'm ready to go and market it as it is. Now, in the second example, again, the top home is the standard of the neighborhood, and my home is the bottom house. Okay? So when I'm looking at this, the two do not compare. And if I was competing against the home at the top, I'm going to lose buyers to that. Okay? So it's very easy for me to look at my house and say, well, if I needed to make repairs to this, now keep in mind, I'm not saying you are going to make the repairs. I'm saying that the home is in fair condition. If you want it to be in good condition, like the property above it, it's going to need new carpet. It's going to need new paint. Okay? I'm going to have to update some lighting, especially there in the kitchen. The cabinets look okay. I'm not really worried about those. I have mismatched appliances, so I'm going to need appliances and probably a new countertop. Okay? Now, then the asset manager would go back and look and say, well, do I want to make those repairs or not? And if I do, am I going to make all of them or just some of them? All right. Repair versus renovate. You know, and this really goes back to that slide. And I put that slide up just for kind of a jab at the shows and try to have a little bit of fun. But I've worked with agents in the past, and it's very frustrating that they don't understand that REO is not a reality TV show, and that when we're making repairs, we're calculating our repairs based on still being able to turn the property quickly but for a profit and to qualify for financing and to help stabilize the neighborhood. I've had agents bring me $100,000 repair invoices because the home is located in a historic area, and they are just convinced that if we put $100,000 into it, we'll get $120 out of it. Well, on paper, that ROI looks great. 20% looks fantastic, but no outsourcer in their right mind is going to spend $100,000 on repairs. When you're looking at repairs, an asset manager is going to say, okay, are these cosmetic repairs? Are they necessary for financing? Will they help me attract a buyer? Will they have a positive ROI? Right? Like that's what they're looking at is how can I sell the property and sell it for more? So because of that, the majority of repairs on an REO property are going to be anywhere from $500 to $15,000, and you won't see very many that are higher than that. And these are some good examples, right? Like on this one over here on the left, I'm just throwing new laminate flooring, new linoleum in the, looks like that's going to be a little bathroom there, no problem. On the right, the house is completely dated. Carpet and paint is what you're going to see on 90% of the REO assets. And that's great. So just get used to that. All right. So the question is, how does the asset manager decide what repairs they're going to make? And we've talked about this. Like, yeah, we look at it and we say, okay, what does the property need, right? The asset manager is going to look at the pictures and they're going to say, what does the property need? But here are some of the motivations for making repairs. Number one, does it meet the client KPI incentives? A lot of REO clients right now, a lot of the banks are expecting a certain percentage of their portfolio to have repairs of some kind. And they don't have to be the $10,000 repairs, but they're expecting most of their homes or a percentage of their homes to have carpet, new paint, something like that. So I know that some of them, they want 50% of their portfolio to have more $1,500 or more in repairs, okay? So when an asset manager is looking at a marketing strategy, they're going to look at that property and they're going to say, hey, will this help me meet my KPI initiatives? And it's not like a one-size-fits-all, right? They're not going to say, okay, forget everything, I'm just going to do my KPIs. They're going to say, well, if it will help me meet my KPIs, will I have a positive return on my investment? Will it help me decrease my days on market? Will it help me attract a buyer, right? And so these are all these little different things that the asset manager is looking for when they are deciding if they're going to make repairs. Does it meet the client KPI initiatives? Will it stabilize the neighborhood? Will it help bring me a buyer and qualify for financing? Will it provide a positive return on my investment? Does it decrease my days on market? And will it cure any safety or environmental issues? Okay, now let's say you don't want to make repairs. Let's say you said as is, but because you're doing a BPO and you're doing your job right, you said, here's what the property is worth right now. I definitely wouldn't make repairs. And the asset manager looks at it and they say, nope, I need to hit my KPI, right? They look at it and they say, nope, I want to meet my KPI. I think it will decrease my days on market. I think we'll get a positive return. I want to make repairs. And you are adamant that we should not be making repairs. That's very fine, right? So your question is, what if making repairs are the worst thing in the world? Absolute worst thing in the world. Well, you've got to remember, okay, in my scenario, I live here in Utah, right? I'm managing a property here in Utah. Well, my outsourcer, my client, is VRM. They're down here in Texas, and that is a very long ways away from Utah. So they may not understand my market. They may not understand my time of the year. Like, I guarantee they don't understand how much snow I have on the ground right now. And they may not understand why I think making repairs is such a bad idea. Okay? So you have to ask yourself, what information did I leave out of my BPO, MMR, market report, whatever, your valuation, your email? What did you leave out that allowed the asset manager to decide that they want to make repairs? Okay? You need to sell that strategy to the asset manager. Here's some examples. Are properties being broken into? A very realistic concern is when an asset manager replaces the air conditioner and somebody goes and cuts the air conditioner and sells it for scrap metal, right? Do we need to not put a new AC on because we're worried about somebody doing that? And if we are worried about somebody doing that, do we need to just put a cage around it so that nobody's going to take it, right? Like, you need to sell the asset manager on the strategy and justify it. You can't just say, hey, I just don't want to do this. Because, guys, there's just too many lazy agents that just don't want to manage repairs, right? There's way too many people that think it's just supposed to be a cakewalk, and they say, well, I want everything to go as is. I just want to sell it quickly. I want to undervalue it. I want to get paid. I want to sell it to investors. I want to move on. That's not the end game for the outsourcer, and it's definitely not the end game for the client. So if you're adamant that we shouldn't be doing repairs, you need to support it, right? Why are the repairs not needed? Why is it best to not complete these things, right? Why is an as-is strategy a better strategy? And just be detailed. Provide as much information as you can. But at the end of the day, if the asset manager says, hey, look, I get it. I looked at everything you sent me. I still want to make repairs. That's great. Your job is to do exactly what they say. So you would just make repairs. All right? Now, obtaining bids. Now, one thing I would highly suggest is that you work with vendors in your area that understand you're doing REO sales, okay? Because you're going to have different expectations from them when you're doing REO than if you were asking them to come out and finish out your basement, right? There's different time frames. There's different documentation that's needed. There's different ways of being paid, ways of completing the job, documenting completion, all these things. So I would start building relationships with reputable vendors, contractors, companies that can do repairs, all that stuff, that understand you're an REO agent, okay? But here's the number one rule with bids. Bids need to be apples to apples, meaning that the same item needs to be included on each bid and the bid should not have one-off inclusions or exclusions, right? The repairs must be detailed. So you don't want to see one bid that says, I'm going to replace the carpet in the home and paint the entire home. That's my bid. And then on the second one, it says replace 1,200 square feet of carpet with FHA grade Barber carpet and paint 1,200 square feet of wall, one-tone FHA grade satin finish, right? Yeah, they're both saying I'm going to carpet and paint, but we don't know what the first bid, if it comes in lower, we don't know if it includes painting the entire house, what the square footage is, if they've calculated the square footage wrong. We don't know any of that. So we're saying you've got to be detailed. The items all need to be the same, and don't include one-offs, okay? Because if you're including a one-off, you could be saying, hey, here's my bid, carpet, paint, and new appliances. But you're expecting to make money on the appliances, so your bid for the carpet and paint is a little less than what it really should be, right? If you send that to an asset manager, they're just going to reject them, and you're wasting everybody's time, all right? The bids need to be apples to apples. So the very best thing you can do as an REO agent is actually send the bids over to the vendors filled out already. You say, look, guys, I don't want you to put anything else on these except a price for each item, and I've put it in there. And you've walked it, and you know the calculations for square footage. And you say, here's how much carpet I need, or here's how much flooring I need, or here's the appliances I need. And you make it very black and white, and you tell them, you need to give me the information on this sheet, or don't submit it at all. I'll just go find somebody else. Okay? Now, once those bids come in, please, for the love of all that is holy, scrub the bids. Get corrections before you send those off to the asset manager. If you're taking a bid and just sending it blind, and it turns out to be a shitty bid, it's just going to show the asset manager that you don't care about your business, that you're not taking accountability, you just pass the buck right along to them, and you're expecting them to scrub it, and you're not going to be in business very long, because it's very, very frustrating on the other side to have to keep cleaning up somebody's work, okay? So scrub them. If you notice that we're missing information, or you notice that they tacked on something that they shouldn't have, reject it yourself, notify the asset manager, let them know that you're doing some additional work on this thing, take it back to the vendor and tell them to fix it. Okay, so the next section is combining multiple bids, and here's what I mean by that. You're not always going to have a contractor that's going to be able to give you apples to apples bids. And that's fine. If that happens, you basically become the contractor. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. If you have multiple bids and you've got to line them up, then the combined bids are going to be based on the amounts. All right? So let's say you get one general contractor that's bidding paint and carpet. And since you need two competing bids, you go out and you say, okay, I'm going to go get two more bids for carpet. So now you have a low bid and a high bid. And you do the same thing for paint. So you have a low bid and a high bid for paint. You're basically going to go through and add those up yourself. So on the right, you'll see here's my general contractor bid. That's my GC bid, right? The general contractor said, I'll do the painting for $2,250. I'll do the carpet for $2,250. I'll do the carpet for $2,500. My total is $4,750. Well, now I put the two low bids together. And you'll notice these are all from different people. So I have ABC Painting that said I'll do it for $2,500, and Tom's Carpet said I'll do it for $1,500. They were the lowest of those two scenarios. My second paint bid from 5-Star came in at $3,200, and my bid from ABC Carpet came in at $2,200. So now I have three bids that I can present to the outsourcer. One for $4,000 using two different vendors, one for $5,400 using two different vendors, and one for $4,750 just using one vendor. Okay, does that make sense? Pretty simple, nice, easy way to send it in. You basically are acting as the contractor. Now, let's say repairs have been approved. Asset manager says, yep, go ahead and go do those. Depending on the amount, because like I say in the financials, you're expected to float roughly $2,500 per asset, or at least have $2,500 per asset available in capital, whether it's cash, credit, whatever, right? So if you're doing that, making $15,000 in repairs wouldn't make much sense because you're eating up so much of your working capital. So in scenarios where you're making significant repairs, the outsourcer may cut the check directly to the vendor. but it's going to depend on the amount. So again, you're going to want to work with your outsourcer to determine what that amount is and make sure that it's acceptable and it's reasonable that you're requesting it. Okay. Now, another thing is that the asset manager, or not the asset manager, but the outsourcer may require the vendor to complete a W-9 and a lien release or a lien waiver up front. And that lien release basically says, I've received full payment and I promise not to put a lien on your property, right? Which is really hard to do, but if they want to get a check cut to them, that's the rules they have to play by. So that's why we say the vendors you're regularly working with really should be aware of the REO process and they should be okay with it. Okay? Now, they've completed the repairs, and we're going to go out and they should be taking photos of everything while they're doing the work, right? And I'm not saying like stop everything and take a selfie, but by all means, if you pull a garbage disposal out, take a picture of that, take a picture of underneath the sink without a garbage disposal, and then take a picture of you putting a garbage disposal in, right? For reimbursement and to get sign off from the asset manager, we need before and after pictures for every repair. All right, so here's a great example. Clearly, the before and after, we fixed a brick, no problem. In this scenario, we put a nice little, we framed out that drywall, we painted everything in there, we painted the cabinet. Okay, easy breezy. And then once you're done with the repairs, you're going to want to submit those to the asset manager for review after you've scrubbed them and you've made sure everything's complete. And then you're going to, once they're signed off, you're going to take those photos, submit for reimbursement, and get paid back. All right? So that's really it on the repairs. If you have questions, message me. Let's flush them out. Let's get you whatever information you need or whatever content you need. In the meantime, though, I really appreciate your time. You know, I appreciate your attention to this. Repairs can be a little daunting, but once you start understanding the bid process and the rationale behind wanting to have repairs done, it becomes a lot easier and a lot more manageable. And in the long run, it's going to help you because if you're making repairs, you're just getting better properties out there, which is going to attract higher buyers or a higher caliber of buyers and potential sellers. Okay? So like I said, questions, hit me up, and I'll see you on the next module.